Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. Andrew Musgrove here. Give this video a thumbs up and share it amongst your Newcastle United supporting friends and family. Thanks to NORD VPN for sponsoring the podcast. Hit the link in your podcast description for a very special discount and offer on NORD VPN. We're going to talk about the future of St James's Park. I'm standing outside of St James's Park right now from the viewpoint of Leazes Park, and of course this very location could be crucial if we're going to answer the question of where Newcastle United call home for the next generation. Last night, Brad Miller, who is the club's chief operating officer, got that one out there, was on stage at the Stack alongside the likes of Darren Eales, Peter Silverstone and Paul Mitchell in front of thousands of Newcastle United fans answering the tough questions that we ask every single day. Brilliant to see, first off, that they are sitting in front of fans, no questions seemingly off the table, and answering their concerns, answering their questions on ambition, and answering questions on the future of St James's Park. And that's what everyone is talking about now, because Brad Miller's words last night on the future of St James's Park has certainly got everyone's attention. He's the man who's leading the kind of investigation in whether to stay or whether to go. Before we get into what Brad Miller had to say, I think we just have to applaud the club for holding events last night at the Stack, because after 14 years of Mike Ashley where communication was limited at best, all we wanted as fans when the takeover happened was to feel part of the club again, to feel involved, to feel like the club valued the fan base. I think events last night show that they did. A wonderful event down at the Stack. But on to what Brad Miller said, because I have to say his quotes have certainly got tongues wagging. I'll read you the quotes and then we'll dive into a little bit of analysis. So he said on St James's Park that the first choice is if we stayed at St James's, we already had 52,000 seats. It comes with significantly more money if we transform it, and it will look amazing. That is option one. Option two is if we were to move away, and not too far away, as we aren't going to stretch the elastic band to the point of breaking. The second option we are looking at is serious, as it does have the potential to earn more than twice as much in terms of revenue compared to the transformation of St James's Park. There's more seats and potentially a lot more seats. So there you have the words of Brad Miller talking about the future of St James's Park, and such an interesting event last night, such an interesting quarter two from Brad Miller. And I think the first thing that springs to mind is that this is kind of the first time that Brad Miller has gone on the record in front of Newcastle United fans to talk about the future of St James's Park. That is a big step. You know, he wouldn't have done that on a whim. You know, that's gone through a lot of red tape, I would imagine, to get that signed off, to get what he said out into the open. And it's even more interesting because if you remember a couple of months ago, everybody was asking of the club, you know, when is the update coming? When is this report coming out? And then they came and said, well, the next update won't be until January. So they squashed the speculation, really. They squashed the constant answers of the officials at St James's Park about an update. They kicked it down the road and said, come back in January and there'll be something official. Last night has opened up that speculation again, and it is it's very interesting. And the big question is whether you've changed your mind about staying at St James's Park. You know, 6 months ago, speaking as a fan, I was dead set against moving from St James's Park. I love everything about it. Its location right in the city centre, just the way it looks, the atmosphere it builds. We've seen it recently against Arsenal. You know, that 12th man from the stands really makes a difference. It's where I've called home for the best part of 30 odd years, and where I wanted Newcastle United to call home well past my lifetime. So if you'd asked me 6 months ago, I would have said no to moving. But I've come round to the idea of moving simply because I look at the way Newcastle United were affected in the summer with the PSR accounts, and I'm thinking, how can you grow the revenue? Well, if you're going to grow the revenue, you probably need to move to a bigger stadium, one that has more than 52,000 seats, one that maybe has 80,000 seats, and moving to a bigger stadium certainly provides that extra revenue which can help the club grow on and off the pitch. And Brad Miller also references that last night. He talked about making sure that he can give as much money as possible to Paul Mitchell and the footballing side of things, and that comes of course by building that revenue, and something like a brand new stadium will do that. But I know it's not for everyone. I know there will people be watching this still dead set against moving from St James's Park, and it goes back to a really interesting conversation I had a few months ago with somebody who said, how do Newcastle United come to the decision about moving? Do they make the decision based on heart or do they make the decision based on the head? Now, if I ask you, Newcastle United fans watching and listening to this, what would you do if you were basing your decision on your heart, on the emotion? I think 99% of people would say you stay at St James's Park. You do your utmost to build 10, 15, 20,000 seats on that stadium at whatever cost, because it is the soul, it is the heart of the club. I think 99% of people would say that. If I'm asking you to decide with your head and you're looking at the accounts, you're looking at the revenue, you're looking up at Liverpool, Tottenham, Chelsea, Man United, Arsenal, in terms of the clubs who've got the big revenue, I think a lot of people will have shifted their opinion and would now consider moving away from St James's Park. As much as it would hurt, I think it would be the right thing right now for the club to grow that revenue and make sure that they become proper powerhouses on the pitch, make sure they become established top 4 contenders, make sure that in time they become Premier League title contenders. That can only be done if you grow that revenue, and that comes, as I say, from building more seats and I think building a brand new stadium. You know, this has taken a long time, this investigation, this report, the decision on the stadium. I know we'd all like to know exactly where we stand. We'd like to know right now, but I'm all for taking an extra few months and getting it right, because it's such a big decision. Brad Miller mentioned it last night. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Can you imagine the pressure on that man's shoulders to get this right? Because this is bigger than appointing a manager. This is bigger than sacking a manager. This is bigger than any player being signed or any player going. This is about the home of St James's Park, the club we all love so dear. This is not a decision that they can afford to get wrong, and this is why it's taken so long to get to the decision, and hopefully it will be the right one. And he said, you know, when he comes to that decision, he wants to be able to say this is the logical reasons behind it. So I'm all for taking a little bit of time to come to the conclusion, and I'm sure you guys are as well. It's why I kind of laughed when I saw people on this platform talking about, without a shadow of a doubt, they're going to stay at St James's Park, because it's never been as simple as that. It's never been as black and white. Every option has been on the table. I think that the only option that hasn't been on the table is moving out of the city centre. We know the Rubens own Gosforth Racecourse and there's a bit of land there, but from what I've heard, it's either St James's Park, you stop, you expand, or it's a new stadium in the city centre, because people understand the benefits to the local economy. They understand as well that people don't want to travel too far. And I guess as well, if you're going to move from St James's Park, which has that soul and that heart of the club, you also can't then remove the city centre aspect, which is still very special, you know, walking up to the ground. So it's a question of where do you go? And I'm standing here in Leazes Park, wonderful part of the city. Do you come here? This is reportedly the preferred location. It is a protected bit of land. It is still a popular bit of land. There's events going on right now. You've seen cars going behind me back and forth. There's some sort of food vendors going up there towards the bandstand. You've got the Northern Lights Trail getting set up as well, and people will be here over Christmas in their hundreds if not thousands enjoying those Christmas lights. It is an important fabric of this city, and I think it's really important. I'm sure Newcastle United have got this in mind as well, not to be ignorant to other people's viewpoints. You know, to you and I, Newcastle United is probably, is probably the most important part of this city. But to others, Newcastle United matters very little. To others, this place will be very, very important to them. So, you know, Newcastle United quite rightly will not, you know, just push their way into anything. There'll be talks and there'll be negotiations and discussions, and everybody's viewpoint will be considered, and that's really, really important. Other potential sites, well, you've got the Town Moor, and we know the Freemen have had talks, you know, not officially, but there have been little bits of talks, you know, would it be possible to move on to the Town Moor, which is a massive, massive site, bigger than Central Park, bigger than Hyde Park, you know, it is huge. But again, do you remove a massive part of Newcastle's green space to build a brand new stadium? People watching this will have their views and say Newcastle United comes first above anything else. I'm not quite on that path, because I think it's really important to consider the city's culture in terms of everything on offer. There's also land down by the quayside. Could Newcastle United buy up where the current arena is potentially and build it there? We know the new arena has hit a bit of a stumbling block down by the Sage, so that looks like if that was an option, it would be many, many years in the future. But other than really the Town Moor and Leazes Park, there's not too many options to consider, and that's the other headache that Brad Miller will have. You know, when he comes to a decision, and let's say he comes to a decision of leaving, where does he go? You know, does he come here? Does he go to the Town Moor? There's not many options at all to build an 80,000 seater stadium at all. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be like a prolonged discussion, and then the planning and all that. So I don't envy him having to make this decision. There's a lot to get wrong, and he has to get it right. So like I said, it's good that he's taking his time with it, but yeah, rather him than me. But where do I stand? I'm not fully on board with moving, but I would say I'm 70-30. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm actually saying that. I think I am. I think I'm set about 70-30 moving, because I think moving to a brand new stadium, state of the art. I mean, you've probably seen what they're doing over in Saudi Arabia, hoping to get the 2032 World Cup bid. They're going to build state of the art stadiums there, and the artist impressions look absolutely brilliant. They mean business, and that's what we'll see in the brand new St James's Park. And you get the sponsorship in, could you get naming rights done and get a massive 300-400 million pound deal. It's all about building that revenue, and long as the atmosphere remains at wherever Newcastle United call home, then I'm open to moving. I know a lot of people will say, well, look what happened to West Ham, look what happened to Tottenham, but look at those stadiums, man. I don't think you would get a stadium like that for Newcastle United. I think it would be a bit of tradition in it. The West Ham example is a bad example, because they're just, I mean, that's an athletic stadium. It's a really bad decision to move there. You're so far back from the pitch. Of course it's going to be difficult to create atmosphere. The Spurs one's a little bit different, but what I would say to that is, if you're concerned about the atmosphere at St James's Park, it's down to you guys. It's down to me as a fan. If we're at a new St James's Park, let's not worry about the atmosphere. Let's create that atmosphere. Let's make sure that no one's saying, oh, it's not the same as St James's. If they move, it's down to us, the fans, to make sure that we can recreate what we do every weekend there behind me at St James's Park. And the other thing, just to say finally before I do sign off, is that if they decide to move, and it's if, nothing's been decided yet, that's the important thing to mention as well, nothing's been decided yet, still ongoing, but if they decide to move, even if they decide to expand really, but more if they decide to move, it shows you how committed the Public Investment Fund and the Rubens are to this club. There's been plenty of outside speculation from down south, talking about the Public Investment Fund losing interest, and even the fact that this has taken so long to get to a decision. People are saying, have they lost interest? No. Just because they aren't spending tens of millions of pounds like everyone expects them to, it doesn't mean they're losing interest. What it means is that they're stuck by the current financial rules, and that again leads into a reason to potentially build a brand new stadium. If they build a brand new stadium at the cost of, I don't know, how much are we talking? Maybe £1 billion nearly. I know the Spurs one cost about that. I think Everton's cost £800 million. That shows you that they are here for the long term. They mean business. They are committed to Newcastle United. I'm not in any doubt that they are anyway, but if you are, wait until see what that decision is. And even if they stay at St James's Park, it's still going to cost them probably the best part of, I don't know, 200-300 million pounds. So I think it's a big sign of how committed the owners are. Not that it was ever in doubt, but I think it will silence any doubt are still out there about their commitment to the club. But hey, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows? We'll wait until January to see what the update is. Let us know in the comments. Have you changed your mind about the future of St James's Park? That's the key question I would like to know. Thank you very much for joining us. Get into them comments. I'll reply to each and every single one of you. Thank you very much. And I'll see you guys very soon.